White House. First of all, let me say that this story has nothing to do with the White House in the United States. I am talking about just a plain white exterior house in my hometown. My grandfather was a self-proclaimed psychic, though I don't know what that means. He used to call people he knew to perform exorcisms. I didn't think anything of it when I was little, but as I got older, I stopped believing in it altogether. He is a stinky old man, but for some reason, all kinds of people come to see him. He was performing exorcisms for free, so he wasn't lying to make money, but he seemed to be serious. By the time I was in junior high school, I thought he was an idiot. There are several episodes about him. When I was in 5th grade, my dad died. It was just a normal disease. Apparently, my grandfather had predicted the age of my father's death. He had been telling my dad since he was healthy that he should pray to God every day because he was going to die at the age of 38. He didn't believe him at all and he died at the age of 38. I've heard that other people sometimes know when other people are going to die in a similar way. He said it's some kind of God's way of telling you. Another story about my grandfather: when I was in 8th or 9th grade, I went shopping in his car. Grandpa had something to do at an acquaintance's house, so he left me in the car and said, "I'll be right back, just wait for me," and we headed for the acquaintance's house. I got out of the car and walked a few steps when he suddenly came back and told me, "You never get out of the car." When I asked him why, he just mumbled, "There's a strange woman watching you," and walked away to his acquaintance's house. At the time, I didn't trust my grandfather's psychic abilities at all. I still don't. I got out of the car after the old man was out of sight. I don't really remember why. I don't think it was a rebellion against him. I didn't believe in his psychic abilities, but I didn't dislike him. I walked back to my car and waited for him. After a while, Grandpa came back and then we went shopping. He didn't say anything to me, and the shopping was done without incident. The problem was that night. It was kind of a hard night to sleep, a weird night, I think. Maybe I am exaggerating somewhat in my memory. I couldn't sleep at all, but after a while, I felt something like a presence under my pillow, or maybe I should say, above my head. I think I heard something like a scraping sound. I was too timid to open my eyes, so I just stayed still. All the time, I hear some kind of presence and mysterious noises. I tried to think of something else to drown my fears, but for some reason all I could think of was Teresa from Super Mario. I couldn't sleep at all like that. As it was, in the morning I heard a bird singing. I think it was a sparrow, probably. By that time, there was no more sign or sound. I couldn't sleep. After a while I heard the old lady's voice. Something like, "Wake up." So I woke up with a start and ran to the kitchen on the first floor. The old lady told me not to run. The old man who was eating dinner looked at me and said, "You went outside, I'll pay you." He took me to the god's room, we have such a room made at his request, and performed exorcism in his way, such as patting me on the back and writing something on my back. After that, I never felt his presence at night. There is also a special event in our family. It is an event in which my grandfather takes many of his acquaintances to Koyasan, Mount Koya. This event happens about 2 or 3 times a year. I was in my 3rd year of junior high school when I went with my grandfather and his friends to Koyasan. I don't remember the name of the building, but it was probably a famous one. After that, she started shouting things like "Stop it." Particularly striking was the voice of the little mother. It was a man's voice, no matter how you look at it. A thick male voice. The mother's voice was rather high and feminine. The old man patted the mother's back, who seemed to be in a lot of pain. Over and over again. After that, after chanting sutras, the mother calmed down and returned to normal. After that, the little mother was as usual. One last thing. This is a story that I totally deserved. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was in pretty good shape at the time and often went to haunted places. Come to think of it, the dormitory where I lived at the time was also a haunted place, and I used to walk around there in the middle of the night with an instant camera in my hand. Incidentally, there were 2 ghosts that were rumored to appear in the dormitory where I lived, a nurse and a baby crawling at high speed. She used to be an OB/GYN. There are few famous haunted places in my hometown, such as Inunaki Pass or the old Whataburger Tunnel. There is one famous one, but I'm not going to mention it here because it would give away my hometown. If you are a local and like the occult, you may know of one haunted place near the student dormitory. It is a building called the White House. As the name suggests, it is a pure white house, and it seems to have been abandoned for a long time, with ivy and other such things entangled in the house, and of course the windows are broken. I heard that there was a child who seemed to be a shut-in, and that the family had a heart attack. After that, I heard that the contractor who tried to destroy the building was injured or dead. Or the young guys who entered the building got hurt or died. Well, it is a common story. I entered such a white house with 2 friends at about 8 p.m. It was summer, but it was very cold that day. The front door was sealed with wooden planks, making it impossible to enter through the front door. We had no choice but to climb over the fence and enter the garden. I remember well that the glass doors had been broken and the white lace curtains were swinging. The house was not as abandoned as I thought it would be. Maybe I just didn't recognize it because it was dark. The first floor had a kitchen, bath, living room, etc. My senior said that the bath was not so good, so I had some expectations, but it was just an ordinary old bath. What impressed me was the kitchen. There was a table in the kitchen where the family would have eaten in the past. On the table were some bowls and plates. I still remember the scene in my mind. We headed upstairs. The first thing that greeted us on the steep stairs were 3 Japanese dolls. There was a shelf in the hallway with 3 Japanese dolls on it. I think we looked at them and said they were creepy. After a while of excitement over the dolls, we went into the room closest to the house. It was probably a child's room. Picture books were scattered around. Picture books like Momotaro and Urashima Taro were scattered all over the room. I proceeded to move them away with my feet. After that, there was nothing remarkable. After looking around the other rooms, we left the White House. The problem was after that. I went back to my dorm and told the juniors about the White House. After the juniors went back to their rooms, I picked up my bag to take out the instant camera I used at the White House. The bag was very heavy. I unzipped the bag. 3 Japanese dolls were staring at me. "Whoa," he shouted and threw down his bag. I immediately called my friend. "Is that you?" I asked, and my friend burst out laughing. It was a bad joke. I thought, I'll do something with the doll tomorrow. And went to bed that night. The next morning, I was feeling kind of sluggish. I felt sick and nauseous. I wanted to take the day off from school, but I didn't know what my seniors would say if I simply missed school, so I forced myself to go to school. Strangely enough, I felt a little better when I left the dormitory. The class talked about our trip to the White House, and I was approached many times. When I told them I wasn't feeling well, some of them laughed at me, saying it was a curse or something. I slept through most of the class. By the time school ended and I went to my club activities, I was feeling much better. After club activities were over, we returned to the dormitory. He took off his shoes, cleaned up, unlocked his room, entered it, and collapsed. The moment I entered my room, I felt heavy and had nausea and a headache that didn't stop. I somehow managed to call a junior colleague to bring me a thermometer. It was 39 degrees Celsius. I immediately called my parents to pick me up. An hour and a half later, my aunt came to pick me up. We got in her car and headed for the hospital. For some reason, I felt somewhat better when I left the dormitory. At the hospital, the doctor told me that he honestly didn't know what was wrong. I didn't have any germs, My throat wasn't swollen, or anything like that. I was so quackish. Anyway, I got some medicine and went back to my parents' house after a long time. When I arrived at my parents' house, my grandfather was waiting for me. Outside the house, the grandfather began his exorcism. He slapped me on the back, wrote letters on my back, and so on. After that, Grandpa said, "There are many small spirits and a soldier from Kyushu attached to him." I was surprised. I was actually in Kyushu about a month ago for a club tournament. By the way, I had not told my family about it. The old man went on to say, "But the soldier has nothing to do with it. There's another thing that's haunting me, and I have no idea what it is, but maybe this is it. I have no idea what this is, but it's probably what's causing it." The old man said and went inside the house. I was tired and went to bed right away. The next day, I asked him about it, and he said something like, that was not an exorcism, but rather, I asked him to leave. I think he said something like that. Then I missed 4 days of school just to be sure. When I went to school for the first time in a long time, I was met with all sorts of questions from people all over the class. It was established that my poor health was a curse. For some reason, the rest of the class thought I was dead. Rumor is a scary thing. For a while after that, I was approached by a girl I didn't know, and I continued to have a bit of fun. Since then I haven't encountered any spirit-like phenomena. My grandfather is still alive and well. By the way, I threw away the 3 Japanese dolls in the mountains after sprinkling a lot of Azuki salt on them. Rumor has it that the Japanese dolls have returned to the White House. I am not sure if it is true or not. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.